Hello, everyone. In this episode of Director Discussions, this is such a fortunate one. I'm fortunate enough to sit down with the amazing Oz Perkins. I don't even know where to begin. Oz is the director behind Blackcoat's Daughter, Gretel and Hansel. I'm the pretty thing that lives in the house. And the upcoming film, which has been crazy on social media, Longlegs. And for some reason, Oz has been kind enough to decide to let me chat with him. So, Oz, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. How are you doing today, sir?
My pleasure, Daniel. Happy to be here. You're a superstar in your own right, and I'm glad to participate.
Oh my God, dude, that means so much coming from you. And what's kind of amazing is like normally when I reach out to a director, if I do get a reply, which is rare, it'll be like, oh yeah, I'm working on something, reach back out maybe in a few months. But you're actually in pre-production on a film right now as we speak, am I right?
It's true. I'm sitting in my office right now. I'm in Vancouver, pre-production on Stephen King's The Monkey.
And what you could be doing work, but instead you're getting grilled by an Irish kid with a fat head about film. So I mean, I think this is a fair way to spend your time, you know? I mean, why be doing work when you can be here chatting with me?
This is the thing to do, man. People want to learn. I want to learn too. I'm going to learn something from you. I have no doubt.
Oh, dude, hope so. I'll turn you into a star. Stick with me, I'll get you far. I've looked at your career and decided,
Is it?
I'll give this kid a break. So I decided to give you a platform, and just try and get your name out there. So it's my pleasure, man. But dude, no, man. I mean, that's amazing. So I mean, are you rigorous in your pre-production phase, or what's this period like for you that we're sitting in right now as a filmmaker?
So out from where I'm sitting now, there's an office of whatever 30 people working, 50 people working their departments. There's art department downstairs putting together all the look of the movie. There's the costumers who are putting together the costumes for the movie. There's the assistant director who's managing the schedule. There's a guy editing another movie that I shot over here. It's a bunch of stuff going on, and really it's just getting everything from the script as it's written ready to be filmed, and having everybody be prepared for the day when the day comes, because you don't get very many days. We get on this movie, we get 34 days to shoot the picture, which is not a lot, especially when you think about the fact that a lot of the great movies that we all worship, like The Exorcist, probably had 134 days to shoot. So it's just a different animal now. And you have to be, not that they weren't prepared, but you have to be extremely prepared every day to make sure you get everything and don't leave anything behind.
Man, that's fascinating. So how fluid are you, when you're on a set? I mean, do you prefer to go? I've chatted with directors before who are like, I'll find it on the day. I'll go in there, I'll find it on the day. And then other directors who will storyboard every single frame and know exactly what they're going for. What are you like? Are you like water? Are you willing to make it work, or do you prefer to just know what you're going and going with a plan?
It depends on what you're shooting. I think if you're shooting something with a lot of moving parts that involve a lot of departments to know exactly what they're bringing to each frame on the day, then yes, you want to be storyboarding, because you want to be able to say, look at this. It's these things that we need to do. If it's just a dialogue scene between people, I'm not going to storyboard that, because we're going to get to the set, we're going to get there with the actors, we're going to go through the lines, we're going to see where they want to be in the room, we're going to see what they want to bring to it, because they're the human beings who are going to be photographed. I'm just watching what they're going to do. So if we get to a kitchen scene between two people who are talking in a kitchen, it's useless to storyboard that. Maybe people do, but I certainly don't. Because you're going to be in a kitchen and you're going to want to say, well, where would you stand if you were this person and this person talking? How would you move? Would you go over here? Would you do that? And you'd be wasting a storyboard artist's time trying to plan that ahead of time.
Yeah. Wow, man, that's so fascinating, especially from you, because the thing I've noticed, or I think that appeals to me about your film, is the way you compose a scene. I think even in the Blackcoat Daughter, the way some scenes are set, and it'll be regular coverage, it'll be two people talking, but there is such kind of an edge to it that, it's not standard coverage, the way you can compose a shot. So does some of that actually just come from you going on a day and saying, this looks nice, we can go with that?
Blackcoat's Daughter was the first movie that I ever made, and before that I'd never had any short films. I didn't do any student films. I
No
didn't do any.
way.
Yeah. So the first time I ever did anything was Blackcoat's Daughter, and lucky for me, you find the best people to work with you, because it's nothing. You're in no way are you doing this alone, right? So you notice in my movies, I never take a film by credit or an Oz Perkins film or any of those credits. I don't take those, because it doesn't seem right to me. Half of the ideas for every movie come from someone else, come from some other department. And on the Blackcoat's Daughter, we had no time. We had 22 days. We had no money. and it was my first thing. So I really was just sort of flying by the seat of my pants. It was sort of do or die. And so we would get to the set every day. Julie, the DP, the director of photography, and I would get to the set every day and figure it out. And that's just, we didn't have any time. There was no prep time to do anything different.
And does that scare you, that idea of figuring something out? Because I mean, for me, I'm
It
like, wow.
depends. It depends on who your partners are. If you have partners who are on the same sort of headspace wavelength as you are, then it's easy. If
Yeah,
you're in conflict, it like anything, this is a business about people. So if you're surrounding yourself with the right people, then you're being reflected, your thoughts are being reflected by theirs. They're adding to you, you're adding to them, and you're building something together. If you're at odds with the people around you, well, then everything is screwed. Like it's impossible to operate. But the idea behind pre-production, and even before pre-production, for me, the script phase, in the screenplays that I write, I try to include as much of what I see and feel and think and hear about a scene onto the page, so that when the first impression that another artist gets, whether it be an actor or a set designer or a camera person, the first impression they get is clear. Oh, it sounds like this. Oh, it seems like this. Oh, I write a lot of things in scripts that the characters are thinking that they don't say out loud. And I think that that's just another way to get the other artists who are working with me in the same pool with me, so that when the time comes, we're all operating from the same place.
man, that's endlessly fascinating to me because it is such a collaborative medium, and I think sometimes, it shows in a film when there's a stunted collaboration, or when some things aren't going, there's not a clear one image going by. So I mean, do you have to be open to that collaboration? Was that something you've always been good at, or did you have to learn how to be a good collaborator? What was that process like?
I think look, so much of this is your personality and your temperament, and my personality happens to be, I don't like conflict. I
Yeah,
don't like to argue. I don't like to raise my voice. I don't like to be aggressive. I like to listen when I can and
yeah,
appreciate other people's thing when I can. So that part comes naturally, kind of an openness to hear other people, or to kind of go with the flow, is something that I don't know how else to do it. I don't know how to be the guy who's like, well, I didn't get it my way, and this isn't happening the way I want it to happen, and what the fuck is happening? I can't figure it. It's like, no, you're given what you're given,
yeah.
and you do the best you can with that, or you waste your time complaining about it, and then it just gets worse.
Like, my God, that's amazing. Like, just to hear you talk about, because man, I had a completely different notion, I think, of who you are as a filmmaker. Because I look at your films and the way, I'm not saying I assumed you'd be an arsehole or something, but the way you kind of
Yeah, he's a
compose a
prick. Perkins is a prick. Yeah.
Well, look, man, if he's chatting with me, he can't be that bad. But I was looking at your, and I was like, the way each shot is composed and the way a scene works together, I would assume that would take such a focus and a precision. But I didn't realize so much of it was just going with the flow and being willing to work around things. I mean, that process I think is fascinating, because obviously many directors work many different ways, but I didn't know that your approach was actually being fluid and being willing to go with something. And do you think that sometimes that work to your detriment, or do you think that always kind of works out? Because I mean, for you, I look at your work and I can't conceive of a way like it could be, like I look at your films and when I watch them, I'm like, I can't think of a way any of these shots could be better, or this scene could come together better. So it's interesting to hear you talk about going with the flow, and that's always seemed to work to your advantage. Have you noticed like the opposite of that, or has it always kind of worked out for you?
I think something that I'm really trying to do differently with Longlegs, the last movie I made, and The Monkey coming up, is to be a lot more aware of the audience's need, the needs that the audience have. The
Yeah,
pictures I've made up to this point, sort of pre-Longlegs, were I don't want to say they were sort of up my own ass, but they were a little bit more that way, where they were sort of a little bit more about, oh, well, I think this is interesting. I think this looks good. I think this is a good sort of rule of thumb. I think this makes sense. And what I've tried to do to get more people to like and to appreciate and to watch what I'm doing is to be more open to the fact that, like, oh yes, sure, I see it this way, but for an audience to sort of really connect with me, I
yeah,
might need to just massage it just to there so that it's a little bit more open, right? It's a little bit more available to a general audience. And because there's nothing wrong with making a picture that everybody wants to see,
Yeah.
right? There's nothing wrong with making a mainstream picture that people really want to get behind. And nowadays, movies are sort of, they're as rarefied as they've ever been, and they're as endangered as they've ever been because of television and streaming, and sort of the mindset around, creating product is becoming increasingly sort of dispassionate and draconian and weird. That when you get the opportunity to make a personal movie, you have to also make that movie available to an audience. Otherwise, you're not going to get another chance. Every movie's your kind of last movie,
Yeah.
especially these, because it's like if you miss it and your movie gets swallowed up by streaming or something like that, and people don't pay attention, it just makes your next effort quadruply hard. Do you know what I mean? Like to find the money, to find the interest, to find the platform. So lately I've been fucking lucky. Pardon my language. It's Ireland. I can say fucking as much as I
Dude,
want,
oh my
right?
God, dude, you're dead fucking right, man. I grew up like going pub to pub. I grew up going
Well,
pub to pub, man. It's nothing I haven't heard
yeah,
before. I'm conditioned. It's made me
yeah,
tough in the world.
yeah, we made Gretel and Hansel in Ireland. So I spent quite a good amount of time in Ireland.
No fuck.
Uh,
Where did you stay? Was it Wicklow? Would you have filmed that in Wicklow?
we shot in County Wicklow, yeah, in the Garden of Ireland, and we filmed all of that out there. Where they shot some of Barry Lyndon, right? Some of Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon. We shot in the same sort of spaces. But anyway, I think I was saying, yes. So what's been lucky for me in these last couple of efforts is that, especially with Longlegs and having the support of Neon, that's been so kind of like, wow, they're really treating this movie like it's something special, because it is. That's a really punk movie. You're gonna like it.
Dude, I cannot tell you how excited I am for Longlegs. But man, you've just hit the nail on the head for me, which is something I feel so strongly. I've gotten to interview a lot of directors, and I've heard a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different aspects of filmmaking. And this is something I've seen a lot and I've thought about it a lot. Is this there? I've noticed sometimes with filmmakers there's this perception dilemma, and I think we're even seeing it now. Filmmakers want all of their films to be like this artistic, beautiful masterpiece. And then there's also this idea of no one wants to be the guy who does Transformers. Everyone has this thing where I think there is this version where you could be this auteur or you want to make films like this, but it's also like, look at someone like Spielberg, who is not only one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, the way he composes a scene, the way he does blocking. Not only does he make fantastic, amazing films, but he makes crowd pleasers. Like, there's nothing saying you can't do both, but there is this, I think, idea of so many people that they want to be perceived as a Scorsese or a Kubrick. But when you look at their careers, they've actually sometimes done films like, I mean, a lot of their films were crowd pleasers, so it is kind of that balance. And it's so fascinating to hear you talk about trying to achieve that balance and try, because I mean, I think even horror is a thing that sometimes I feel people look down on, like,
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. People sort of do, and yet the real sort of immovable truth about horror is that it's the genre that it's always the strongest.
yeah,
It's always the one that's, well, most consistent at the box office. It's the most appealing to people for whatever reasons, and you can get sort of granular about it. You can get kind of cosmic about it. You can say that we all share the experience of impending death. Now, that doesn't have to be a terrible thing like that. I mean, it really, certain cultures, certainly the American culture, has framed death as like the ultimate bad idea, right? Like,
yeah,
death is like the thing that can't happen, but it's definitely gonna happen. And I think people want to engage in the mystery of that. And I think if you're able to present a picture that sort of frames death as something that people can engage, even if, especially if they leave it in the theater, right? It's like, oh, they go and they deal with Freddy Krueger, or they deal with Michael Myers, or they sort of deal with Hereditary, and they're like, oh my God, like this is death is so overwhelming to me.
yeah.
And then they get to leave, right? And then it's like, okay, cool. Like I can sort of rebalance myself. It's like Disneyland. Disneyland, I heard a great talk by one of the guys who built the original Disneyland, and he was like, at Disneyland, when we built it, he's like, the thing was, we weren't trying to create happiness. He's like, we weren't trying to sell happiness to anybody. We were trying to sell reassurance. And he said,
Wow.
what we try to do is we try to make the rides as terrifying as possible so that like a ride like the Snow White ride or a ride like the Pinocchio ride, which are so dark and so intense for a little kid. They go into these rides, they have this experience. They're like, I can't do this. I can't deal with this. This is too much for me. I can't deal with this. And then at the end, the doors open and it's California sunshine.
Yeah.
And the moment of the doors opening and the kids being like, oh my God, I'm okay again, is what they're selling at Disneyland. Not
Wow.
great all the time. It's I feel I'm gonna die. I'm okay. It's the I'm okay part that's what they're selling. And
Yeah.
so I think that with horror movies, there's also an element of, oh, I'm okay. And I think a movie like Smile, which is a totally fine, really mainstream, great movie that pleased almost everybody who saw it. The best thing for me about Smile is that it ends on that song. It ends on that lollipop song, and it sends people out into the street again, feeling like, oh yeah, life, cool. That was death, but here's like life again. Cool, good. I would see that again. I would tell my friends to go see that. So anyway, that's sort of off the topic, but
No.
you get me.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. And I think it is that, a way, even we talk about commerciality and being able to put film out there. It's like, Come and See isn't a film that I think a lot of people go afterwards, like, I want to see that shit again. That's a film that makes you think, oh, fuck. It never actually takes you out of it. You finish it, you're like, oh, fuck. And you're still in it. So that's such an amazing point that I've never actually given any thought to. But what's amazing is hearing you talk about, I think, visually build a horror film. Because, like, both my parents are deaf. So whenever we go to a cinema or we watch a horror film, for me, I'm always watching it and thinking like, what's my dad thinking right now? Because
Yeah.
so much is sound and atmosphere. But if you can visually convey something is scary, I mean, I think that's different altogether. And it is like building something. Like horror, for me, I think is one of the hardest things to do because I mean action sometimes I feel is easier or comedy, but horror because everyone's scared of different things. It's much more of a kind of a sword in a way. You're trying to piece it together. So even I've sometimes watched a horror film and think, I wonder what my dad's thinking right now. I wonder if this is connecting with him, if he's scared or if he's feeling.
Amazing.
And so, what's that like for you building a horror film? Like, because I mean, I assume 500 times in the edit, there has to be a point where you're like, is this scary? Like, at this point,
Yeah.
is this scaring me right now? I don't like, do you lose that? And is that building a horror film the hardest part about making a horror film?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things to respond to you. First of all, I love what you say about your parents. I love what you say about your dad, and it makes me think about something that Jordan Peele always says about his movies. It's like the difference between horror and comedy is the music, right? He's like, it's the same. It's basically the same thing. It's just the music and how you present it. And of course, he's living on the edge of horror and comedy kind of all the time. I mean, Us is a very funny movie. Ultimately, Nope is a very funny movie. Even for me, the best parts of Get Out are the comedy parts. Like
Yeah,
the best part of Get Out for me is when he comes to when Daniel Kaluuya comes to the house for the first time, and there's like a barbecue or picnic the first day, and he there's another African American guy there, and he goes to give him a fist bump, and the guy puts his hand over it like that. Instead of doing this, he does this.
yeah,
And you have this moment of like, oh shit, everything is that's the only thing to do
yeah,
in a situation like this. And if you do this, it's a nightmare. And that's a very funny moment. So I just want to say that the music of things, the tonality of things, the sound of things is extremely important. And I also wonder what your mom and your dad think when they experience it. It's kind of beautiful to kind of guess at what that's like. As
yeah,
a filmmaker in the genre, you're always faced with people saying, well, is it scary? Or like, how's it going to be scary? Or it could be scarier. And the word has no meaning, right?
yeah,
Like because like you say, everything is differently scary to people. I don't know what people are scared of. I don't even know that it's my job to try to figure that out. I think my job is I mean, look, I've from the beginning, I've taken it on that the movies I make are going to be personal to me.
yeah,
That I'm going to use the horror genre as a sort of a way in to express my stuff. my sadnesses or my losses or my the comedy around around horror, or the grief that a person might feel. Or so like it's always been more, horror for me is always supposed to feel more like tragedy than like boo. You know, like
Wow. Yeah.
I don't know about boo. Like boo doesn't do anything for me. And that's cause a little, that's one of the things that makes an audience, you get an audience on board with you if you scare them early, right? Like, and that's why there a lot of TV shows and things have these cold opens, right, where they sort of hit you with a thing, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll keep watching. Now, Rosemary's Baby doesn't do that.
Yeah.
The Shining doesn't do that. But those are old movies that would be differently appreciated today. The to say, is something scary, or how is this going to be scary? God forbid you find yourself in a meeting with studio executives and they're like, well, how is it scary? What's going to make it scary? And you're like, well, fuck, I don't know. Like, I
There's a
know what's going
clown
to,
in it. I'm gonna throw a clown in it.
there's a clown in it who jumps out of the thing, or there's a person there when they thought there wasn't. And but like I'm saying to you, part of the job is to engage your audience. So in a movie like Longlegs, we do try to start with something that's a little bit more like that, so that people are like, okay, like good. I got that sort of first like blush of nervous excitement out of my system, and now I can settle in.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. That's part of it.
But that, not like,
For
to
sure.
me, that is endlessly fascinating. Is that idea of actually building something. And Longlegs, which, I mean, I've seen the trailers and the little kind of bits for it. And what's amazing is just how constructed, like subliminally, how it's making me feel. And I think that's something else I connect with your work for. Like when you watch a film like Friday the 13th or something, that is a film which, I mean, obviously it's an amazing film, one of the greatest horrors ever made, but it is something that scares you, and you're feeling that. I think that is more of a boo type film, like you were talking about. But I think there are certain other horror films that actually have this effect on you inside. And like for when I watch your films, there is this kind of feeling, and I can't articulate it, but there's something internal going on, in the way
Great.
each
Thank you.
frame is composed. And I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to say. But in Longlegs, especially even in the little trailers, it's like all these frames and shots that maybe don't mean anything in correlation to each other, but subliminally it's having this effect on me. And I think that is something that I noticed in your work. So I'd love to ask you, Longlegs, do you feel like that film is your biggest undertaking in terms of editing something and putting a film together? And because there does seem to be so much moving parts going on at any given time, do you feel like that's your biggest undertaking? Am I articulating that?
Yeah, for sure. And the good news is that I think it really works. And I think that what Neon is doing with its ad campaign is a demonstration of the fact that the picture really works. And that what's so gratifying about what's happening with Longlegs right now, which I hope continues when the proper teaser comes out, which I think is this week, and that proper teaser is fucking crazy. And then the movie itself is like super punk, like it's a really punk kind of pop movie that's just
Really?
really pretty nuts. But what I love about what Neon is doing is they're representing the movie for what it is. They're not trying to say it's something else. They're not trying to say it's this other thing, or they're saying it's this weird, not a puzzle, but sort of, where it's like, how do these looks like you're saying, how do these things fit together?
Yeah,
Like, do
yeah,
they fit together? The good news, Daniel, is that they do, and that it really does do that. But what I love is how they're saying to audiences, look at this thing, look at this odd thing, and
yeah.
how does this odd thing go like that? I'm happy about it. It's exciting.
Yeah, and man, I just want to say, man, not that you care what I think, but I'm so happy for you, man. Like, it's amazing to see a filmmaker like you be given an opportunity like that. And I like, I've obviously heard so much stories about filmmakers not being happy with how a certain thing is turned out or how there's been problems. But like, man,
I think that's most of the
yeah,
time. I think
yeah.
that's most of it, to be honest. When you're like,
But
I'm sitting in this really weird pocket right now where I'm like, wow, this feels really good. Like, don't fuck it up. Like, don't
yeah.
make it go bad. Like, this is really good right now. Like, we've got them right where we want them. And like I say, luckily the teaser, the proper teaser that comes out, I think this week, is pretty bananas.
Oh, dude, I'm so excited to see that film, man. I mean, you totally deserve all the success you're having with, man. So I just want to congratulate you for that, because it couldn't have happened to a nicer person. But sir, one of my last questions before I let you go, what
Yeah.
advice would you have for anyone looking to become a filmmaker?
Write about yourself. You know what I mean? Like that's where everything is, right? Like I find that when especially when you read scripts by people who only consider themselves screenwriters, what and not filmmakers or directors or filmmakers who don't see the whole thing. I feel like a lot of the times scripts are very much like, oh, this would make a cool movie, or this is like other cool movies, or wouldn't this be cool if we did this? And the answer to that for me is like, no, it wouldn't, because it isn't about anything. For me, like I said, everything that I'm doing is about me.
Yeah.
All of the experiences are mine. All of what the characters say are about what are about me. And if it wasn't, I wouldn't know what I was doing. I would have nothing would feel honest to me. And when I see a lot of movies, especially in the horror genre, as effective as they are, a lot of them feel just sort of essentially dishonest, because they're not, and emotionally dishonest because they're not about anything. They don't have any humanity to them. So for young filmmakers starting out, it's like, start with what is right in front of you. Like, even just hearing you talk about your life, just like the very little slice I've got of your life, it's so rich and
Wow.
it's so profound and touching. Like, I don't give a fuck about somebody who's a like I can't even make anything up that would be half as interesting as what you've just said about your experience. And people, I think, forget that movies are from a human, they come from a human being. And if they don't come from a human being, then they're kind of nonsense.
Oh my days, man. That's amazing just to hear you talk about that. Oh, you're such a legend. Sir, before we finish up, are you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter? Is there anywhere people can go follow you or check out your work?
I don't do any of that. So you'll have to.
You old fart. You old fart,
I
you.
know, man. I'm one of the last old farts who doesn't do it. Even the old farts do it now. And
Oh,
my kids are so glad, by the way. Like, my kids
yeah.
are like, Dad, just don't ever get on social media. Like, give us a break. My daughter is in Longlegs. You'll see her in the trailer. But she doesn't want me posting shit or like being on social media at all. So I'm not. But that's not why I don't do it. I don't do it because I can't handle it. But I think people can look at Neon. Neon is putting stuff out all the time. Otherwise, you'll just have to find me where you can.
Dude, amazing. And any new projects people can go check out? I mean, obviously, Longlegs, is there anywhere people can go check out?
Longlegs is everything right now. So go to Neon's Instagram and see all the things that are there. Go to Fangoria, they're jumping all over it. That movie will be out. I can't say exactly when because they haven't dropped the date, but it's in the next few months. And
That's
very exciting picture.
amazing. And Oz, I just want to say again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Like the fact that you take the time to chat me when you're in the middle of actually constructing a film may not mean much to you, but for me it means the world. And truly, one day I hope I'm half the man and filmmaker you are. I'll talk to you a little bit off air, but I just want to say thank you again from the bottom of my heart for chatting me. It's been an absolutely unbelievable honor. You're such a legend. Thank you so much, sir.
My
Everyone,
pleasure.
you can go follow me on social media if you like Daniel Feet 33. And as always, if you have the means, please make sure to donate to the National Deaf Children's Society. Link for that in the description. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Keep an eye on Longlegs. This has been my chat with the amazing Oz Perkins, my new best friend. Stay tuned. I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.